Hi, Masterminds. Hope you're all really well. Thank you for joining me today on Monday Market Update session. Couldn't get more interesting. I'm not going to say exciting, although some people might find it exciting, when the world seems to be on a bit of a knife's edge in the macro. But I will just say that, look, we have seen this happen before, and there was a very funny little graph, which I'll just share with you in the Discord. If you ever kind of like, well, geez, uh, we're worried about portfolios and all this kind of stuff. And, how do we think about strategy and all this? And I just like to keep it really, really simple. Having lived through, lived through the portfolio machinations and market machinations of, the Ukraine war, also did a deep dive on what happened exactly in markets during, the Iraq war, Afghanistan, and other situations. Every scenario is slightly different, but it can kind of boil down to this one diagram. Nuclear war headlines. Nuclear war doesn't happen. You don't buy, you sideline. You buy, you're rich. Nuclear war happens, you die, you die. That is, in a nutshell, what it is. Look, if there is nuclear war in World War III, the last thing we'll be thinking about is our portfolios and our bottom line, honestly. And it will be food, guns, ammunition, family, just to think of the basics. Um, but this is the way to think about it because I don't think the world is going to just fall into a handbasket of, war and destruction and it's all going to go to hell. I have to look positively. And if that is the case, then these scenarios, like we have seen a few false starts around, Israel and Iran, now it's in full swing. The world is not going to end, even if this does escalate further. Russia, Ukraine seemed like nukes could go off any moment. It didn't happen. Um, if this is the sort of the modus operandi of the current tempo and how wars are fought now in the, we're situated in the digital age where the major powers are kind of fighting via proxy, just like the Cold War was done between the United States and the Soviet Union. This is just how we have to navigate this space. As an investor, we have to be defensively biased, understand that headline risk is really, really strong. So headline risk essentially just means a new headline can pop out tomorrow on X. Information travels so fast. Algorithms, traders can dump risk or buy risk based on what they're seeing really, really fast and move markets. That's all it is. So as investors, we almost have to just step out and go, okay, I understand there is a tremendous amount of volatility and risk here, but my hypothesis here and my thesis is that Bitcoin's still going up and to the right. There's nothing has really changed. But in the interim, the volatility will be quite extreme in the short term. So I'm going to look at this as opportunities to buy more of whatever I want. While everyone is shitting the bed and either running out, panic selling, going into, I don't know, bonds, gold, all that. We're here for positioning, we're here to make money. And I would encourage you to look at things like this, understand the worst case scenarios there. But if that happens, again, you won't be worried about your portfolio. But if the more likely thing happens where it's just, we just all continue on this train of life, there's a lot of horror in this world. We're here as investors. What do we do? Well, you have to have that thought that things are going to get better at some point, or at least understand how the markets react to these situations. Sell the drums, buy the cannons. Again, this is elongated. This can really play out and it can get a lot worse before it gets better. So the headline risk is still really strong, but there will become a point where this is begins to be priced in by markets, just like Russia Ukraine was, where every little movement in the front line or changes to the dynamic and fears around nuclear weapons, it gradually dissipates and the world adjusts. It's just the world we live in. All right, I just want to touch on that in terms of what I see are because I'm not going to go into the Israel-Iran war. It is like the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Really just want to step back and try and remain high level, understand, right, don't get hooked into any of the emotions of either side or their reasons for doing what they're doing. You can obviously look at that. I'm not saying don't. But step out and understand, all right, what are the drivers here? What are going to move markets? And how can you effectively position yourself? So I wrote this little piece here, which maybe you want to read. I just posted in the macro. So a ton of headline risks still about the place, which has me bidding blood, but cautious of greater near-term downside. So what I'm doing here at the moment, and you may have seen me in the trade view, is again, not really doing much different because Bitcoin's been outperforming everything. That is my security, that's my safety blanket. I'm not going into USDT. I'm fully allocated into Bitcoin and I'm looking for opportunities to move into my high conviction altcoins on some serious drawdowns or indications that they are bottoming. So I am really cautious of the headline risk. So I'm maintaining still a sizable Bitcoin allocation. But again, if I'm seeing opportunity, I'm moving in and just understanding, recognizing that if my bids do get filled, I have to accept that it might fall into those bids and roll a bit further. That's okay. I'm buying the blood. I'm seeing the opportunity. I'm buying it here. So the top three risks from here that I see in terms of headline risks, this is what you want to look out for. A, direct US involvement. So right now the signs are that it could go either way. I seriously doubt whether the US is going to get publicly and overtly involved. Notice I said publicly and overtly. They are obviously providing some serious defensive support, maybe even offensive support in terms of planning and military hardware. We don't know, and we can't know for sure. They're definitely helping on the defensive side of things with the missiles lobbing over to Israel and also probably targeting and all that kind of stuff in Iran. But right now, they're publicly only providing logistical support. So you see the tweet down here. So there is a ton of tankers and airlift aircraft moving from the United States, and it's all tracked because all their transponders are still turned on. It's heading over to the Middle East. So my sense is the US is going to maintain involved in the sense that they are providing logistical only. Trump's base is really uppity right now about how they do not want to get involved in another Middle Eastern conflict, directly involved, bombing campaigns. They're going to let Israel do its own thing. Um, that's just my interpretation of the situation. If it's publicly Trump comes out and goes, "Yep, we're getting involved. They've hit US bases in the UAE or whatnot." That's kind of the red line that I sense publicly for the US is that if the Iranians hit US bases in Qatar, UAE, and elsewhere in the region, then it's open season. They do not want to do that, which is why I suspect Iran is not going to do it because they will incur the wrath of Donald Trump and the US military machine overtly. Again, not I think something that's likely, but what do I know? It seems right if Iran's getting um, their pants pulled down a little bit right now. They don't want to compound the issue. Number two is the Strait of Hormuz closes now. I hope I've spelled that right, but the Strait of Hormuz is right in front of Dubai and Qatar. It's that what's it called? Not the Suez Canal, the Arabian Gulf. Damn it, won't come to mind. But there is um, a, kind of like an inland ocean that runs from Iraq, Kuwait, down past Qatar, Israel, Qatar, and UAE, and you've got Iran at the top. Essentially, when you're in the UAE in Dubai, you can look across the horizon, and you're looking at Iran essentially. Now, that is a very small strip of water that has four different nation states kind of looking at it and surrounding it. That is so important for many reasons, but that a lot of the world's energy and oil go through that strait by cargo ships, by all that. If Iran puts serious pressure on that, and it's often a contentious point because there's always US aircraft carriers that defend the UAE and that type of region because they're trying to keep that supply route open of oil to the world. Now, again, if Iran wants to make that area really hot and stop ships, they can't blockade it, but they can lob missiles into the area and make it untenable for this supply to run through. That's another red line, I think. And if financial markets get a whiff that the world's oil trade probably drops by I don't know a large percentage, maybe 10, 20, 30%, it's disrupted. What does that do? Well, it increases the energy costs globally, it increases inflation fears, and markets, oil is going to go through the roof, and markets are not going to like that at all. So that's my interpretation of that. We do not want that to happen. You do if you want your bids filled a bit lower. And number three is nuclear weapons. Any mention about nukes? There's a lot of talk now about nuclear sites being bombed in Iran. If there's a radiation leak, if there is mention that Israel's going to drop one, if Iran has one, I saw Pakistan today would retaliate if there's retaliate with their own bomb if Israel drops one on there. So, yeah, look, just like Russia, Ukraine, it probably seems more likely that that would have happened there versus it happening here. Again, what do I know? But headline risk, that is the hot tamale of headline risks. Now, a bonus one, which I've just put in here, is maybe not so much headline risk, but just an escalation risk, which is World War III. And that's exactly what this can lead to, because if we think Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, they're in the same orbit. They kind of have partnerships, economic partnerships, some military partnerships as well. Um, Now, do China, Russia, and North Korea want to see one of their linchpin allies in the Middle East, if they see a regime change where they are no longer in charge and don't get the run of the green in that region? Say in China, about 20-30% of all Chinese oil comes from Iran. So this is a big deal. This is a really, really big deal. Are they going to sit by and let Israel and the United States flip Iran, or see a regime change, or we'll see the government there go into turmoil and the country go into turmoil? And after that, they're not going to get any exporting of oil. So China, North Korea, and Russia decide to militarily back Iranian regime, so publicly and kinetically, forcing open conflict in other arenas. So the most, I would say, the worst thing that China could do right now for the United States, is they're focused in Ukraine and Israel and the Middle East, is to open up a third front, is to put the pressure on really hard, and make a move on Taiwan and just see if the US blinks. So that would be, I think that's kind of World War Three. And World War Three, it's a bit subjective. How do you classify that? Well, I don't know, but it's where we've got an axis of two sides, and there's clear conflict in all three of the globes, and they're all connected. All three parts of the world, and they're all connected. Or we could see Russia maybe try and put the pressure on in the NATO region somewhere. I don't know. This is pretty unlikely, guys. Really unlikely. But in my view, but anything is possible. So that would be like nukes are probably the worst headline you can get. It's World War Three stuff. If it's more via proxy, it's bad, but it's not as bad as the nukes. But it's still bloody bad. All right, top three bullish reversal headlines. Ceasefire talks. Trump's already saying on Twitter, and there's Wall Street Journal and whatnot, saying that talks are being actively pursued by the American regime with the Iranian regime, and they're keen to talk too. But it's kind of at the point where, and again, I'm just sort of guessing here, but can you talk the Israelis down from accomplishing whatever mission that they have here, which is probably regime change or a complete destruction of all their nuclear sites? I'm not sure. Yeah, it's interesting, but no one wants this war to go on at all any longer. So that would be a huge catalyst for a massive reversal in the market. Um, Regime collapse. So there's already reports that, again, where do you get your reporting? But I'm seeing it on Twitter from a few, I would say, credible strategic sources. And they're saying that regime family members, some of the regime itself, so the Ayatollah, they are actively evacuating to Russia, at least some of them are, and that the Israelis want to take out the head of the Iranian regime as well. They're actively hunting for him, but the US have said, or Trump said, absolutely not. You do not take this guy out because you probably make him a martyr. Again, I'm just commentating here. So we'll see. Regime collapse. It sounds wonderful, but we have seen it. Oh, it doesn't even sound wonderful. As from a Western perspective, the outcomes of this war. Oh, let's just flip Iran. Let's make their regime change from a whatever it's now, or a fundamentalist Islamic dictatorship, you could say. Let's flip it to a more democratic Western, blah, 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 blah. How many times have we heard that in the past? Libya, Iraq, even Afghanistan. It doesn't work. So it has to be a grassroots phenomenon, which there is in Iran. There is a huge younger cohort that wants to modernize and want to become more like the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Iran has so much potential, and I wish the best for the Iranian people. And I do hope there is some kind of regime change, but it needs to come from within. It can't be directed by the CIA. It can't be directed by the Israelis. None of that. They've, in a sense, the Israelis and the Americans, whatever happens from here, they have opened a window for that change. But the thing is that an immediate headline reversal? I don't know. I would expect it to be incredibly tumultuous. Maybe there's a civil war, maybe there's a coup. I don't know. The military is still incredibly powerful there. So whether the citizenry can actually, it's probably some military guy that's going to be in place. Again, I'm just guessing here. But in the immediate term, it might be, bearish. Everyone's just trying to price it in, but then it's understood and more. But I think it is a reversal signal. I think it will hit and everyone's like, oh shit. And then the markets will start to run again. And the bonus sort of bullish headlines, it's not really a headline, but it's the overall picture here that eventually, like Russia, Ukraine, these headlines, more negative, more bombing, all this kind of stuff, they eventually all get priced in very, very slowly, so they no longer have any effect. And already, like you see the S&P 500 just rallying today. I mean, it seems completely disconnected from reality. And Bitcoin, it's going to do what it does. We're probably closer to this than anything right now, that most of the negative stuff is being priced in, barring further escalation from these top three risks. So I wanted to share that with you guys, just some thoughts bobbing around in my head. Now let's get into some of my ideas today, and I'll get to the actual charts in a sec. My immediate thoughts, I don't, I look at a lot of charts, but the first thing that I noticed today, because I had an alert down to 0.786 for SUI, was against Bitcoin. The 0.786 got tagged, so it went a little bit further. It's closed above it now, and there's a strong bullish divergence against Bitcoin as well as the USD chart. I'm seeing the same thing on Solana as well. These are often reversal signs that I'm looking for to, bid to get quite aggressive in my positioning on the downside. Because if you remember my strategy, guys, and I'll just reiterate it, is I want to be buying the premium on the upside when we see the positive trend, but I also want to allocate a percentage of the capital that I have to, let's say, layer ones, and just going for the fastest horse. I want to allocate, let's say, 20 to 30 to maybe even 40% of that capital position to be buying the discounts on the downside, because I don't want to miss those discounts. I just don't want to be buying all of it on the upside. I still want to capture some of that low cost basis for that reflationary bounce. So I have been buying, and I'll just make sure I'm sharing my screen. Okay, good. I have been buying on SUI BTC. Essentially, I've been just slowly buying beneath 3,000 and getting more aggressive underneath 2,800. So anything through this region, I'm really keen to get active on. But this is the makings of a really nice reversal here, and I can see potentially the movement will be back into the downtrend like that, and we're trying to bottom here via maybe an inverse head and shoulders movement out. I focus on SUI here because I think it's a really great vehicle and mover. It has been a great mover. Solana can probably do the same thing here, but yeah, I'm focused on SUI. Really, really don't mind that at all. Let's go to Bitcoin and have a looky-loo. So after all geopolitical issues, all that, what's Bitcoin done? Well, it hasn't done anything. It's just sort of grinding sideways. Now, I have a ton of bids below 100,000, but the level just doesn't want to break currently. So this is a higher low from that low. That's nice. If it can make a higher high from here, happy days, she's off. So the level to break still, well, I'd say now is probably, you get excited above 111. I would be getting a little bit more excited about a 107 again. But we definitely have, two peaks here, lower high. We're probably going to make something in this region here, but ultimately it's above. That's where we get really, really interested. The 200-day moving average down here, still sticking out like a sore thumb, but we're holding the RSI there on the 50. We're also holding the 100-day, no, 50-day moving average through here, like a boss. So tag, tag, tag. We don't want to lose that, or we are coming down to these types of areas. So right now, it's kind of in no man's land for me, guys. I'm just paying attention, being defensive, looking for opportunities to buy, because I think once this phase is over, we are going to run. I think that is that's the direction of the market. We're going higher. But the markets have to price in this uncertainty and geopolitical fear. That's just where we're at. Okay. Let's have a little looky-loo at some of the others. So SUI already showed SUI. That's versus USD. So yeah, the Bitcoin chart tends to lag the USD chart. And I actually think the Bitcoin chart looks slightly better than the USD chart, although that might not be technically true. There's a double bottom here on the 100-day moving average, massive bull divergence. This looks like, she wants to run higher. So these two peaks here, if you flipped it, let's have a look. Yeah, flip it there. You see these two peaks, and you go, like the RSI is essentially making let's say up here, a lower high. If you flip this over too, and that should be the rollover point for lower prices, which would mean higher prices if we're flipping it. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Ethereum, yeah, nice reaction here. Well, we were very, very bullish on it the other day after this close. It loves to fake you out. So my sense is we need to move out to the weekly and just make sure any closes above certain levels are solidified on the weekly time frame. The daily is trying to trick us out a little bit, but if we get multiple days, maybe a week's worth of daily closes above a certain level, then I think it's probably secure. But you can't tell if there's going to be World War III, dropping overnight. So again, this is a volatile market. You got to be prepared. Buy the dips if you're still keen on it, because like if you were buying it through here, nothing has changed for Ethereum. Nothing has changed for Ethereum if you think these are headline driven markets that are going to eventually price. In fact, I'd be buying any dip here. This is a very clear range to me. And until it breaks this range, this is bullish tilted for me. It's probably going to make another run above the 200 here, and it might be the actual breakout. You've got a really, really nice RSI higher low bounce there on the range low. That looks good to me, guys. That looks good. I won't sugarcoat it. I think it looks good. Virtuals here, similar, but I wouldn't. I don't know. I'd be buying virtuals high. And altcoins. This is the kind of the thesis I'm making. Apart from like I say, SUI, which I just want to form a position in. For the majority, I would be looking approaching the market from the proviso of okay, Bitcoin's not at all-time high. Okay, that's a cross. That crypto is not above its 200-day moving average, another cross. If Bitcoin's trading above its all-time high and the altcoin you're interested in is trading above its 200-day moving average, whether it be USD and Bitcoin, then that's a big tick. But I think we can really limit ourselves in terms of being defensive and offensive. We need to be looking at major moving averages. Have they reclaimed? Are they in an uptrend? And is Bitcoin in a positive state? Because it doesn't matter what the altcoins are saying today. If tomorrow Bitcoin falls through 100,000 and goes into the 90s, all these altcoin setups are nuked. They're down 10, 20%. That's just fact of the matter. That's what the market is right now. Bitcoin is breaking out all-time highs and running higher. Then these altcoins are they're going to start to do those multiples and percentages that we really want them to do from this point. But when Bitcoin sneezes, the altcoins catch cold. So they're not ready for prime time yet. We're talking with James Seyfarth this Thursday, actually. It's going to be really, really great. We're going to film the webinar. We're going to ask him everything about ETFs, about Solana, up and coming potentially, and others, which is really exciting. So, lots to come. So, guys, I would use this period as your preparation, your planning time. Work out what your high conviction altcoins are. What do you want to acquire? What are you willing to buy on the dips here? And what levels on the upside are you looking to, go heavier on? But there is no rush. There is absolutely no rush. And particularly when we have this overhang of headline risk, my sense and what we're doing with the fund as well is maintaining an incredibly defensive posture, which is heavy Bitcoin, some allocation of Ethereum, and then heavy USDT allocation. With that USDT in stink bids below. Because if the headline risk comes out, we're going down to some levels you wouldn't think that we could reach quite quickly, but our anticipation is the market bounces back up after that, and we get a very nice, cost basis suddenly, and we're also up in profit quite quickly. We're losing nothing by putting those bids in. We're gaining everything if they fill. So that's our approach right now. And outside of that, until Bitcoin makes that new all-time high or Ethereum breaks out or whatnot, we're in low risk. And we're not touching altcoins until we see strength in the market or maybe some of those positive headlines begin to pop. That's my view, guys. Please feel free to leave your questions or comments below. I still see DeFi performing really, really well according to Bitformance. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Look at the sector performance. In fact, I loaded up crypto. If you weren't aware, we've got a partnership with Crypto Tax Calculator now, which gives you 20% off their premium product. So I'm just testing it out myself. Bitformance sectors. Here we go. So lending is still really, really strong over 7 days. So it really hasn't felt affected by it, which is why we're looking at Aave quite specifically. If we go into lending here, what is performing? Yeah, it's these big boys, 24% of it. So this is what we talk about when we're thinking, relative strength. What is holding up and what is even up during periods of uncertainty and Bitcoin volatility? If you're seeing, a sector moving like this, then it is something you need to pay attention to, because once this period of uncertainty and downside is over, that should run really, really hard on the back end. So, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this session, guys. I hope you have a wonderful week. Questions or comments, throw them my way, and we'll get them. But yeah, exciting times. Keep your chin up. Um, I think the good times are ahead still. So that's my perspective, guys. Have a wonderful day. Catch you soon. Bye bye.